Hello, you have found Why We Are Christians. My name is Katie Philpott, and you normally see my husband Kent Philpott in this place, but I am here because I want to re-interview, after a 3-year absence, my very, very special friend, Michelle Shelfer. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Katie. I'm glad to be back with you.
And I have the special reason. You have a special reason for being here. And I wanted to let everyone know that you have a book and a ministry. I'll smile pretty right next to Prepare a Room.
A Path to Peace and Healing for Those Hurt by Abortion.
This is a very big deal in our current world. And I'm going to put it down now, and we're going to talk about how it came to be having the title,
Yes.
Prepare a Room.
It's an odd title, isn't it?
It's an odd title. So
Yeah.
Where did this title come from?
The title comes from our wonderful Isaac Watts Christmas carol that we sing every year. Let every heart prepare him room. And that's a way of thinking about our hearts and our lives that really appealed to me when I thought about how people might be able to approach the challenge of finding peace and healing from an abortion experience. That if you make room in your heart, make room in your life, make room in your family, make room in your relationships, in your whole entire life for this important process, that those who are suffering from an abortion experience can really make progress towards resolving a lot of unresolved feelings that come from an abortion experience.
Yes, and if we have time, we'll get into each of our stories on what happened to each of us.
Because we both have
had
abortions
yes,
earlier,
ago.
way long, and yours is a really unique story, and mine has its uniqueness as well. Although in many ways, I'm finding that these abortion stories are
very similar.
Very similar.
Very similar. Okay, but let's get back to the book. And what is it that you are having someone do who's reading this? In other words, what is the process that you take? Mostly women. Now, is it mostly women that you're thinking of?
It is, but I really feel that this book can be helpful to men too. I've heard this already from male readers, and even people who have not had abortions, who have maybe perhaps had almost abortions and then decided against it, and they're left with that guilt feeling from having considered taking the lives of their children. And also those who were affected by someone else's abortion, because this is a problem that reverberates through a family, through a church community. You may be the grandma who didn't have the opportunity to grandmother your child. You may be the sister who drove her sister to the clinic. You may
Certainly
be
the husband.
the father obviously is an important factor.
Yes.
Yes.
Whether or not it is officially a husband, but yes.
Yes.
Right. Okay, so I've read through it. I didn't actually do the whole write it down process because I was more interested in how to understand it in order to speak about it.
Right.
So I know that you lead people through preparing more than one room.
Yes.
Just give us this idea of what is the process one would go through if you really did the whole work that is involved in this.
Well, it's a 10-step process, so there's 10 chapters, and each one treats the subject with great gentleness because this is such a sensitive issue. And it touches so many buttons and causes so much pain. And there's a great investment in people who are burying these feelings, that they keep those feelings pushed down. So I'm gently leading and coaxing. First, we prepare a space in our lives and make a commitment that we're going to follow through. Then we think about what that would mean to actually go through with this. So we're not diving in, diving into the deep stuff before we've really prepared ourselves. Then somewhere in the middle of the process is the 5th chapter, which is the middle, which is what I consider to be the heart of the process, which is learning about love and learning, perhaps relearning, what real love means. Because I firmly believe that when we understand love, the way that it has been taught to us as the highest form of love, or the greatest love, I call it in the book.
There you go. That's what I was going to ask about.
Then when we can master that, of course we can't master it, but we can approach mastering it, it will not only affect all our relationships, but it will also affect how we think about this child that we lost in abortion. And I'm firmly of the belief that that's key to our healing. So then I ask the reader to rethink issues of identity, where our worth comes from, sex. We talk a bit about marriage, and then there's a final room, the third room. The second room is to be built, and these are not like go to Bed Bath and Beyond and
yes,
to decorate a room.
This is not about remodeling.
These rooms that I'm using are it's a thought exercise.
Yes, right.
It's a thought exercise, so it's not a literal room. But the second room is for the child, to make a place in your life for the child, and I explain how that can be done. And the third one has to do with our heart, really prepare him room, let every heart prepare him room for the one who is able to bring us to a complete healing, the forgiver himself, Jesus.
You said the name.
I did, yes. But it's really important for me. You see, you probably noticed that I did not write it with a heavy-handed Christian language.
No, but there's enough there. Let's say that there's a balance between there and not there.
Yeah.
And I know that you went through a process of trying to decide how much there to have there.
Yes, that was really important. But finally, my target reader is not necessarily a Christian, and I want non-Christians to feel comfortable here with this process. So I've gone to great lengths to try and help them to feel comfortable. They don't have to believe in Jesus to be part of this process.
Well, I do applaud you for being able to balance emotional, psychological, maybe that's together on one side, spiritual on another, leg of a three-legged stool, let's say, and maybe even a little intellectual on another leg of the stool, to where I think you've gotten a pretty good balance between at least those three aspects. And there's plenty of other aspects involved when people's memories that they've perhaps tried hard to submerge, maybe they didn't stay submerged, or whatever reasons. I think you've gotten a good balance. The next I'd like to go to is a place where you explain that phrase you used, greatest love.
Okay.
And where did you get that? Just flesh that out some more.
Yes, that is from the teachings of Jesus. And I'll just say, of course, you know me very well, but others don't know, I'm a Jew. The idea that I would come to have a situation where I'm learning from this Jesus, it's highly unlikely.
Right, isn't he Goyish, that guy?
Yes, he's that Catholic fellow.
Yeah, right.
His last name is Christ.
Yeah.
It's just highly unlikely, but yet it turned out that he has taught me so many things, and one of the things that he teaches that is of tremendous value is the greatest love, the highest form of love, and he tells us exactly what it is. The greatest love, or the highest form of love, is to lay aside your life for someone else. That is to say, I'm putting my needs over here so that your needs become front and center in my life. Now, we who've had abortions, we didn't do that so well. There came a moment when we made a decision and someone had to sacrifice their life so that we could be served for our convenience, or for our pleasure, or for our sexual freedom,
ideology,
for our
political stance,
yes.
our
Many
cultural
reasons, yes.
New norm. Yeah.
There are so many reasons why women get abortions, and I'm not pinning it down.
Right.
And really,
let's make sure that we tell people this is not a political book.
Absolutely not. I'm not interested in arguing. I'm not interested in the debate. What I'm interested in is helping people who are hurting. You say to me, well, I'm not hurting, I'm celebrating my abortion. And I say, fine, read a different book. I'm not talking to you right now, although you may change your mind down the road.
That might have made a little chink in the armor just talking about it.
Yes, down the road, give you, another year, 10 years, 20 years, and you might be looking at things differently. But for right now, I'm really focused on bringing help. And I have to say, it was really a challenge because there are so many different kinds of women who've had abortions. We're talking old women who are looking back on something they did 30 years ago. We're looking at, teenagers, every economic class, every race, all over the world. Everybody's had abortions in the world. We're talking about, I have a study that shows that worldwide we have a figure of 1.72 billion children who have been lost to abortion in the last 40 years worldwide. This was a study that was done. And so my challenge, just getting back to finish that sentence, was to make a statement and a process that would involve a very wide range of readers.
Okay.
So when we're talking about love, we're talking about learning to lay aside our lives for someone else. And Jesus modeled this certainly to the highest degree when he laid aside his life as a sacrifice to bring atonement for sin.
Yes. I mean, he even did it in small ways, of course. The smaller ways were his having 1,000 people line up to get healing. That's probably not very small, but I guess I'll go smaller than that. On the evening before his arrest, and then the next day, all of the horrible things that happened to him, including the crucifixion, he had his disciples show up for what we call a Passover Seder, that's known as the Last Supper, and he had them all sit down and he washed their feet.
Yes.
And he gave it as an example of how a servant
yes.
is to treat others,
yes,
regardless of whether the servant has the word Lord in front of his name.
Right. Absolutely.
So greatest love is modeled by Jesus,
Yes.
and how does it really get applied? You've said it some, but say it again. How does it get applied in this situation?
Well, once we spend a little time in chapter 5 learning about what it means to practice, to learn, to bring it into your life as an ongoing practice of greatest love, maybe in your marriage, in your parenting, or even with strangers, just applying it all over your life. Then I try and bring it back, because the following chapter after that is preparing your child's room. So what does this have to do with your aborted child, the child that you lost in abortion, or children, because some people have multiple abortions? Well, what I see is an opportunity to get it right now. We repent of how we did it poorly before, and now we're going to get it right. You see, that person is a part of our lives. That person never goes away as a part of our lives. It's just as though you lost your mother. Your mother doesn't stop being your mother even though she passed away.
Yeah.
So this child is a forever part of your life. How can you now bring a new approach to loving this child? What can you do now to love this child, not the way that you did before, not the way that you're accustomed to, but the way Jesus taught us to love? So we're learning to love this child in a new way.
Now, I could imagine women who are watching this going, now wait a minute. Yeah, I had an abortion, but I'm not about ready to actually almost like resurrect that child from the ash heap of my memories and make this child real enough for me to imagine or have real love for this lost child. Please don't ask me to do that. I am not at all ready to do that. I thought I had this buried, but I happened across this book, or I happened across this TV show or a podcast or an interview, and now you've got me thinking about it, and I'm a little upset. I'm not sure I want to go there. Why do I have to go there?
Well, you certainly don't have to. Nobody's forcing you. But let me ask you, you hypothetical reader, to consider a few options. One is to continue as you have been. And one other option that you have is to start making connections between perhaps some of your self-destructive behaviors or some strange experiences that you have, be they uncontrolled emotions, what I call in the book the irrational hulk, nightmares, temper, irrational responses, emotional responses to people maybe who have children, or it could be anything, or more overt self-destructive behaviors such as suicidal thoughts or suicidal actions or cutting or overeating, or the whole world of self-destructive behaviors that's out there. Is there a possibility that if you are experiencing any of this, that there might be a connection, that actually there's a person inside you that you've pushed down who's saying, wait, I really think you would benefit, you would really grow and mature by being courageous enough, and I know it takes great courage, to look at this a little more deeply. And yes, there was a person involved. If you're not ready to acknowledge that actually you were a parent and there was a child, then that's where my book takes, I think I've gone to great pains to take you with a very gentle hand through this process. Because I know from my own experience and from what I observe that this is enormously difficult. There's so much resistance against it. And I understand that. I try and bring a compassionate approach, because there's no condemnation in this book. Nobody is judging you and calling you a murderer. Nobody's...
Yeah, right. Oh, yes. This is not a book of picketing outside of abortion clinics with, God hates abortion.
Right.
I mean, whether or not that's true, this is not that.
Yes. No, I have tremendous love for my reader, tremendous compassion for them. I've been there. I know what it feels like. I know how hard it is to go through that process.
So we were talking a little bit earlier, and we've touched on this already, but there's this whole spectrum of, we'll just leave it with women for the moment, for the purpose of this question. But there's a spectrum of women who have had abortions, and you explain you've 3, 4, 5 of them. So give us the spectrum of women, and who do you think is going to respond to this book? How can we reach women who are maybe at one end of the spectrum versus the other?
Yeah, well, it's a hot button political issue, abortion is. So you have women over here who really think about it in ideological terms and in terms of women's rights and my control over my body, myself, a sense of autonomy. Nobody can tell me what to do with my body. You have no right to judge me for what I do, and they celebrate their abortions, even that extreme.
Yeah.
Then you have the women who, like we used to do, we had a cultural understanding that we didn't applaud abortion, we didn't call it good, but we allowed it because we made allowances for difficult situations.
Yeah.
And then you have the other women who are really feeling that they have suffered from what they did. Some of them have suffered to the point of taking their lives. This really hurts women. And so you've got the full range. And I'm convinced that the ones who are celebrating their abortions could certainly, as we discussed just a few moments ago, end up in 5 or 10 years questioning that position, because it really does leave a lasting scar on oneself. And it's, I think, only by quite willful denial that you can get away with saying that this was no big deal. I mean, I saw recently this sounds like I'm going off topic, but I'm not.
Okay.
I heard a psychologist talking about a new syndrome that the psychologists are worried about, and they've designated. It's called doom scrolling. So it's scrolling on your phone,
Yes.
and it brings you down,
Oh,
basically.
yeah.
Okay.
Doom.
Doom scrolling.
Doom
so
scrolling.
if they've got a designation for this,
Yes.
how in the world can they get away with denying that the most physically invasive, hormonally disruptive, absolutely life-changing experience of an abortion would not have impact? How could they get away with saying that it wouldn't have impact? It obviously has impact, and I think there's great denial operating when you try and shut that conversation down. I'm trying to open the door to that conversation.
Okay, great. And now what's happening in my mind is I'm imagining women who have had multiple abortions. Now they've put their careers first. They just couldn't settle into relationships, partly because of the mindset of no big deal. They go together. No big deal, get an abortion if you don't want a baby to interfere. No big deal, go from relationship to relationship. So the whole no big deal thing has permeated, set in, changed the nerve synapses.
Yes.
And then, I'm 45 years old.
Yeah.
I've had 3 abortions.
Yeah.
My body's done.
Yeah.
I missed my chance. And now I'm ready to think about it, but not necessarily in the way I should. So you're helping. It's good that you're not being preachy and judgmental.
Oh, don't want to do that. No,
don't
I know
wanna
how
do
to.
that.
I know just how to turn people off. I don't want to do that. I want to draw them in. I want to invite them. The whole thing is intended. You know what Jesus said? He said,
A few things.
"Come to me."
All who are.
Yeah, I'm not even going to go that far.
Right.
Just
Just
stick
come
with
to me,
come
yeah.
to me. That's it. It's an invitation. Come to me. Let's keep it simple. Come to me. So this is an invitation to go through a process and maybe come out the other
Okay.
side a little bit less, as we call in Jewish, a little less meshuggah than we were before.
Okay, so I'm going to put this up again. We've got 5 full minutes. Let's talk about where somebody can find this book, where somebody can find out and see all your wonderful drawings, your foundling drawings.
Okay.
And we're going to have a second program on this, and we're going to get into our personal stories. So, if that's what you like to hear, personal stories, wait for our next show.
Well, you can get the book on Amazon and I believe Barnes & Noble, and you can get it directly from the publisher. I'll spell his name. It's nordskogpublishing.com, and it's NORDSKOG publishing.com, and that's directly from the publisher, but you can
Okay.
also go to Amazon.
And you have a ministry website that is centered on
Yes.
the concepts in this book and reaching out to women in this book.
Yes,
and you also
the ministry includes a lot of different things. We have a CD of music. We've got a YouTube vlog that we're doing called Life After Choice. We've got all the foundlings uploaded online, and
I see a new foundling every single day on Instagram.
every day, one a day.
One a day.
I'm up to
These are
180.
180. These were just 9 of them, but they're in color, of course, on
Yes.
the website. And
Yes,
are they
180
all on
of
the
them.
website?
Well, I'm a little behind.
Oh, that's all
There's
right.
about 170 right now. I have 180 total at this point, but they're generally, and you can purchase them as well.
Before we end our current half hour,
Yes.
Give us a segue into the next half hour, a topic that you would like to start for 1 minute, and then we can pick it up later. I see. I just opened it at random. It says "Making Amends."
Making amends. Okay. This is from the chapter on what happened, because I really want the reader to explore exactly what happened. So it's a very long chapter with a lot of questions. In fact, the book, just so you know, has space to write in.
Yes.
And it's encouraged to use it as a workbook.
Yes. See, there's pages with let me say, with nice little stars around it. It says visually with a little pencil in the corner.
Right here.
Right here, your thoughts. What is happening? And she asks you questions.
Yeah, lots of questions at the end of each chapter and throughout. Let's start it with the first questions at the very beginning.
Yes.
So that you see what I'm going to be asking you right at the outset. I'm asking you, what has brought you to a willingness to look more closely at your abortion experience? Is your willingness mixed with reluctance? I know the answer to that question is yes. What do you think you might gain from a closer look at your abortion experience? So these are the kind of things that I want people to be just starting to whet their appetite, to get them thinking, to get them talking, to start bringing up the issues that they're going through. Yeah.
Oh, my.
There you are.
I just imagine people saying, okay, I'll try. Okay, I'll try. And
Bravo.
what better? Bravo.
Bravo.
Okay, I'll try.
Or brava.
Brava, yes. Prepare a room, a path to peace and healing for those hurt by abortion. We're going to speak about our own stories in the next segment, yes, episode. I think I'll start first, and then you can finish us with your story, because then it will help us understand how you came to prepare this whole ministry.
The whole thing.
Right. So thank you very much for being with me for this half hour.
Thank you, Katie.
We'll come back for the next half hour.
Great.
So you have reached Why We Are Christians. This is the end of segment number 1 with Michelle Shelfer. See you next time.